For far too long, Yonex has ruled the Power 98 square inch class with its market-dominating EZONE 98, with Wilson not really even bothering to produce a proper Power 98, with the Ultra 98J being a Japan-only offering. Babolat kind of stumbling for the last 3 generations with the Pure Drive 98, the Boom Pro kind of sitting a bit outside your typical range, coming in at 310 grams and also not really penetrating the market as well as Head has hoped. But I think now Dunlop has finally produced something that can properly compete with the EZONE 98.
Dust till dawn, I turn my speakers on. Why they wanna play with the king? I told them meet LeBron. There's darkness in my city, wrong moves, and you won't see the sun.
Not only kind of nudging into what makes this EZONE 98 such a compelling option, but also taking inspiration of some of the great features with the Pure Aero 98. So how does this FX500 bridge the gap between the market's 2 best sellers? Well, what makes this EZONE 98 great? Well, we've got huge amounts of power for a 98 square inch racket, but in the hand it really feels control oriented, and part of that is because of a very, very thin throat, much thinner in the throat than your average 98. And that thin throat not only feels sweet in the hand, but it also helps the racket flex in the throat. Throat flex means that you get a little bit more of a soft feel, but it also increases your ball pocketing through like a slingshotting kind of bend, so you can really feel the ball come in and then shoot out laterally, which again increases your feeling of power. But they've kept the upper hoop quite stiff, so it's thick and stiff through the racket face, which contributes to its power. The downside of the EZONE 98 is twofold. Like we said, a little bit muted, but also not the most stable. You do still have to hit the ball in the middle of the racket to get best results, as you would expect. And if you hit off center, the low twist weight, which contributes to great maneuverability, means that torsional stability could be better. And that's one of the things that is so amazing about the Pure Aero 98 is torsional stability is absolutely excellent. This is a very stiff frame, and it has a little bit of a higher twist weight compared to the EZONE 98, so these off-center shots, they're not so brutal. This is one of the reasons that Carlos Alcaraz is able to use this racket in essentially a completely stock form. And the way that they bring in a little bit better control to the Aero 98 is through an extra cross, so 1620 instead of 16x19, but also keeping that beam a little bit thinner through the hoop. The FX500 Tour takes a lot of these elements and combines them together. Again, we get a little bit more throat flex. You can feel this racket giving you that kind of slingshotting effect. It holds the ball on the strings, and it gives you more, honestly, a entirely more connected feel than either the EZONE 98 or the Pure Drive 98. The EZONE 98 is muted and soft and kind of pillowy, overly plush, in my opinion, and the Aero 98 I think is more connected by being a little bit stiffer, but ultimately it's incredibly boardy and you can't feel the ball pocket on the strings quite as well. The FX500 delivers that ball pocketing as well as creates a little bit of vibration through the string bed, which helps you locate that ball on the strings. That's one of the things I don't like about the EZONE 98 is it's so plush, it's so muted, that I can't always feel, okay, did I hit it off center? The way that I know I hit it off center is my ball after is terrible, but it felt the same as if I hit it in the sweet spot. When it comes to swing feel, the FX500 Tour is quite neutral. I think it does suit a lot of swings generally, though it might not suit your swing perfectly. That is something that is quite unique about these 2 rackets as well. The EZONE 98 definitely suits a more classic swing, but it can also work with more Western grips. And same with the Aero 98, though I do think the Aero 98 happens to kind of swing the best at a semi-Western, as long as you're looking for maximum racket head speed. The FX500 Tour I hit with a couple of different grips. I've been trying to move things around on my forehand so I can help you understand what works well. Full Western works fine, all the way up to almost an Eastern forehand seems to work fine. You might want to, experiment with your weight distribution depending on what kind of grip you have. I find generally that more head-heavy setups work better for more extreme grips, and more head-light setups work better for more traditional grips, and I found that to be true with this FX500 as well. Now, as grip shape, swing style, and swing feel of the racket relate to spin potential, I think that is one of the areas that the FX500 Tour is a little bit weaker. And overall, I don't mind that for a power racket. Again, this is not supposed to be their spin line. The EZONE 98 just happens to offer a very strong spin for a lot of players, and the Pure Aero 98 happens to offer a huge amount of power for a lot of players. And so in marketing this FX500 as a power frame, I don't mind that it can't create spin, but I did struggle to find my margin ball. Didn't matter what kind of weight setup I went for. I tried up to 3 grams in the tip, bringing the swing weight up to 330, as well as no grams in the tip with a purely stock swing weight and thinner strings, so that came in around 315. No matter what, I couldn't find a margin top spin ball. I was generally hitting flatter more through the court with this frame. Going to spin strings like Tourline Otoro also didn't really give me the margin that I like and need for my game. But if you're a more penetrating player, you like to hit through the court more, that's the kind of technique and play style that the FX500 Tour works better for, and that's something that we can see in real life in the hands of my friend Trey from Winners Only, who's been playing some great tennis with this update. He was down in LA and played some absolute barn-burning matches there. Now, in relation to my struggles in finding that margin ball, we have control. I think control could be improved with the FX500 Tour, and I'm a little bit more critical of control here as opposed to spin, despite this being a power racket, because I think the EZONE 98 and Pure Aero 98 are able to offer better control than the FX500 Tour. The Pure Aero 98 offers control by being incredibly predictable no matter where you hit it on the string bed, because again, it's a very stiff racket with an extra cross, so you just get very uniform response across the string bed. And the EZONE 98 gets it through a much tighter than average 16 by 19 string pattern. So it's quite tight in the sweet spot, so when you line things up, you get a very controlled response through a pretty low launch angle. And because you can't create a huge amount of spin with this FX500, which is another way that players can create control, it means that you have to hope that this string bed is tight enough to deliver the directional control you need to find your targeting, either by depth or laterally, depending on, like, do you want to hit it close to the line or far away. And I think that's the main struggle with this frame. I think a 16 by 20 or a slightly tighter pattern would have gone a long way. I personally feel more in control with the FX500 normal version, the 100 square inch, as opposed to this 98. I feel like the launch is a little bit lower for whatever reason. It's almost like, looking at these two frames, I don't think the pattern is tighter on the 100, but in some ways I felt like I was able to get a more consistently lower launch out of the 100 square inch version. And that could be in part due to layup. This has a firmer layup, but one of the ways that you can adjust launch angle is not only through string pattern, but also through the layup and how the graphite flexes and cups the ball and shooting it out. So I think a lower launch angle, whether it be through a 1620 or just a revised layup, would be a great addition to this frame. I even strung it with control strings like Rattlesnake Tour Sniper, a renowned for being pretty dead low launch angle string, and that was the best setup for me, but it just didn't give me exactly what I was looking for out of a 98 square inch frame. One of the standouts of this racket though is stability, and I think that's one of the reasons it competes so well with the Pure Aero 98. Regardless of where you hit it on the string bed, you do get a pretty consistent response. There's not a whole lot of twisting off center. It's one of the reasons I was able to use this pretty much in stock form with strong success. I am personally trying to move away from really weighting things up to like 330 swing weight, 345 gram static plus, because I just find I'm playing better tennis with a lighter setup lately. Part of that, I think, is because my movement has improved a little bit, so I can be in position more often to take a full rip at the ball. And also I'm playing against harder hitters, and I just need because I have less time against a faster ball, I need a little bit of a lighter racket to be able to accelerate in time to redirect their pace. One issue with stability that we did find in purely stock form, which does go away when you add a little bit of lead to the tip, is contacting the ball in the top third of the frame can create a little bit of buzzing, some vibration, a little bit of a tinny feel. Adding the weight to the tip did cure that for us, even retaining the same string setup. But in stock form, because ours came in a little bit low at 315, it's not always the most confidence inspiring to like hear your racket ringing and tinning through the shot. So that is something that I'd also like to see improved, though it could have just been a situation with my sample. I find it's a little bit unusual for those tinniness, that ringing, that tinniness, that hollowness to go away after weight is added, but in this case it did work, so I don't know if your mileage is going to vary on that one or if it's a consistent problem throughout future batches of this frame. Overall, who would I recommend this racket for? Well, like I said, it's a great kind of halfway point between the Pure Aero 98 and the EZONE 98. If you're looking for an EZONE 98 that's a little bit more connected to the ball, maybe a little bit more stable on off-center shots, the FX500 Tour is a great option. If you like the Pure Aero 98 but want something comfortable with a little bit better ball pocketing and flex, the FX500 Tour is an absolutely fantastic choice. When it comes to string setups, we tried 3 different setups. My own hybrid that's going to come out with O-Toro in the mains and O-Toro Snap Tour Flex in the crosses. For me, in this frame, that was a little bit too soft, a little bit too powerful. I think you really need to go to control-oriented strings. I put in Grapple Snake Tour M8 130 in this frame as well. That was probably Simon's favorite choice. But then I started to miss a little bit of the ball pocketing that I had become so accustomed to with this frame. So the final setup that we have here, and is my number 1 recommended so far, is Tour Sniper in the mains, restring sync in the crosses. Gives you a really connected feel. You can feel everything that you need to feel from the string bed, but the strings are a little bit softer, so you still get that nice ball pocketing and solid comfort out of this racket. I think this is a good racket. I think this is probably Dunlop's second best frame. I've tried almost everything. I haven't tried the CX200 Tour, the 95s, and I haven't tried the SX300 100 square inch frames, but I think the FX is overall the strongest performing line so far from what I've tried. Honestly, the FXs, I think they were strong in the previous generation as well, but in a lot of ways they're infringing towards the top of the market when it comes to the power frames. They destroy the Ultras in terms of what I think mass market appeal is good for. I do love the Ultra 98J. It's one of my favorite 98s right now, but that's not something you can just go out and buy. I think they're getting very close to the Pure Drives. I think this FX500 Tour is better than the Pure Drive 98. And then I think you're splitting hairs between the FX500 and the Pure Drive. They're close to the EZONEs, but they offer a distinctly different personality to the EZONEs. The EZONEs maybe can perform a little bit higher because I think they are more inherently powerful, but they lack a little bit of soul, they lack a little bit of feel, and that's where I think Dunlop has done a great job in filling the gap. These are like the feel choice, the player's choice, in my opinion, in the power segment, and I really don't think you should sleep on Dunlop. They're doing some great stuff right now, and I just hope to see it continue. And if you want to see me play a full practice set with this frame so you can really get a good idea of what the real world situations are like, you can join our entry-level YouTube memberships page. I'll post a link down below so you can